Hello and welcome back to Free Podcast Tools, How to Podcast Guide. And I am happy to have once again Mel Sharp. Mel, I'm glad to have you. Are you ready to get into this?
Yes, I am. I am great like always.
That's good, good. So next, phase 2, we would get show name. And I always try to make this also the domain name. Now, the reason I do that is because I have been, in the past, I have been threatened litigation based on a podcast name. And they, if you don't own the domain name, but you have the podcast name, and somebody's been running with that domain name legally for years, and they've got a brand built around it, and you're just ignorant to it, you can get yourself into some big trouble. So what I recommend is heading to any of the major podcast directories, doing a search, doing a Google search or whatever search engine you use, and just trying to see if the name you're actually looking for is available, first and foremost. Because if that name is already taken by 2 other podcasts, you don't want that headache. And you don't want to kind of pigeonhole yourself in a cluster of other podcasts.
Okay, so in theory, let's say you were doing a podcast on Adobe Flash and you called it Flash.
Right.
So there's the Flash TV shows, there's Adobe Flash. So, I mean, there's a lot of ways. And so what you would go to the podcast directory and look up exactly what you could do to signify it. Okay.
Yes. And I'd also try to stray from, depending on the nature of the podcast, I'd also try to stray from trademarked names. So Adobe is a trademarked name. So I would try not to include that in the show title, just in case I start monetizing and then they come back around and go, "Hey, what are you doing? What you doing there? Can we have some of that money, like all of it? Thank you." Things happen. So,
because in theory, you want your podcast to stand out.
Yep.
Like if you were going to make a love song, it wouldn't be called "Baby I Love You."
Not bad. I like that analogy.
Or an action movie called "Blown Away" because there's like 19 of those.
Right. So, if you can acquire that domain name and do your due diligence on all that stuff, you want to also have it be a keyword if you could. So if I was starting I'm in Vassar, Michigan. So if I was starting a Vassar football podcast, I want to see what people are searching. They might be searching as it is, Vassar football podcast, or they might be searching, Vassar football information, or something. I'm going to get into Google. I'm going to get into any kind of a tool that will help me identify what's being searched, because often you can just go to YouTube or somewhere that has a search bar, type in the start of the name, and then it'll fill in the rest. It'll show you what's been searched mostly. So if I can land on something that's going to give me great search juice and people really can identify with, know immediately what it means, that's where I want.
Okay, so what is their mascot, by the way? Vassar.
It's a Vulcan. I have no idea what a Vulcan is, other than Star Trek.
Because maybe they meant vultures. But okay, so in theory, your podcast, so you'd apply the word Vulcan as a keyword in theory, because in theory they also would type in Vassar Vulcans.
They could. I might stray from that, given if I have a relationship with the school or not. It's just a high school, so probably not too many lawyers coming after you for that. But if they were a little skittish of me doing that, I would just say like Vassar football something, or try to tie some stuff together. So take, for instance, my free podcast tools. I wanted podcast tools website, but that wasn't available. So it was like, okay, stack something on the front or on the end to help you get the keyword you want, but also make it distinguishable from somebody else.
Well, that makes sense. Makes perfect sense.
But definitely, if you can, buy the domain name, because that is, as my lawyer put it, it is a step in the direction of you're trying to do something with this.
Okay.
And you're not just sitting there squatting on a name or something along those lines.
Got to get the name. Okay.
Yeah. So it's kind of challenging, but believe it or not, there's a ton of really high quality names available out there. So if somebody's out there watching this is kind of discouraged, don't be, because in that search, you can come up with some gold, some real good stuff. There's a lot of good stuff left. Just got to get creative.
What's a good if I just Google podcast, or sorry, domain?
Typically, I'll search on Google domains.
Google domains, okay.
Mm-hmm. I just run through on that and see if what I want is available and whatnot. There's a lot of domain registrars out there, but Google domains will give you the domain
and they obviously
and privacy.
Trustworthy. Yeah, okay.
And privacy. Other places charge you $10 a year for that.
Jeez.
Yeah. Okay. So it's kind of cool.
Okay. Yeah, I have it right there. It looks a little user friendly. So okay.
Yep. Okay. So just to recap out there, folks, if you search a podcast directory like Apple Podcasts or any of the main directories, you can kind of get a good sense of if something already exists with that exact name. Plus, you want to get that domain name, kind of have yourself stacked up pretty good if things go sideways, which they rarely ever do. But just in case, it's good to have both. But all right, Mel, thank you so much for joining me on this one.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me. I got some homework to do.
And you at home, you have some homework to do as well. Thank you for joining us. We'll be back with step 3.